This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My guest today is Kieran Nolan. Kieran is a Melbourne-based educational technologist. He's a coder. He's a blockchain guy, he's a biz dev guy, and well, I'm fascinated to learn more about all of this stuff, particularly interested to learn what an educational technologist means. Welcome to the show, Kieran.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
So, and before we get into it, I said you're based in Melbourne, so you're an Aussie guy. Always good to have a down under guy on the show.
Yeah, it makes it much easier for the time difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, all that stuff. And always good to hear a friendly accent. And I'm sure the listeners will enjoy the good old Aussie-Kiwi dichotomy, if you like.
For sure.
So let's have a bit of a background to you, Kieran. Could you please introduce yourself and then perhaps lead into what you mean by educational technologist?
Sure thing. So I've been in the education space for, going back to 2007. Kind of started out as just building networks, a network engineer between schools. Built probably the first school in the cloud, I think. Well, definitely in Australia, probably one of the first in the world. Literally migrating everything to the cloud, doing one-to-one devices, kind of even before Google Apps, like just using Dropbox was a really innovative school. Then moved up to New South Wales to another school doing cloud migration and architecture for them, and then came back to Melb's and found a really cool school. Someone actually tweeted me the ad they put for this school. It was back in 2014. And they were literally looking for a computer geek. And I thought, this is hilarious. So it was one of the funniest ads I've ever seen. So to check out the school, read a paper that the principal wrote on what if Walt Disney built a school. So I had to check it out. Went to the school, had a meeting with him and a tour of the school. I'm like, this is amazing. Like they literally built these, look what they're called, simulated learning platforms, but no traditional classrooms. So no kids sitting in a row. It's these open spaces with, like for example, they got like a dragon boat, like a massive dragon boat you can walk up into, which we ended up building gesture-based controls to move around Google Earth instead of like a year 2 unit. That's what they have. Like it's amazing. A giant spaceship for the year 3 unit, which we put like controls for Kerbal Space Program at the front. And that what ended up being my classroom, which was sort of connected to 2 other classrooms, which we called the Enigma portal. And that's where basically if you think like the sort of holodeck, basically like that. So basically my role was the ed tech. So that's integrating technology into the education space and doing that sort of across the school. What kind of happened with that was I was volunteering at the Bitcoin Center at the time, kind of starting at the school, and I asked the principal if he'd like to be Australia's first Bitcoin school, and he said, yeah, sure. And then what's that? And then we kind of went on a journey from there. So,
and what year is this? What year is that you you said, hey Mr. Principal, let's do you want to be the first Bitcoin school?
2014.
2014. Wow. Yeah, that's reasonably early. And so what school is that? Dandenong North, is that the school?
That's the one, yeah, Wooranna Park Primary School. So yeah, with that, we were sent away to 2 universities, one in Greece and one in the UK, which I later learned, I think Andreas had a bit to do with. But basically, they were accepting tuition fees in BTC. So we're like, oh, we're a school. We're looking at like teaching kids about the fundamentals of this. Can you send enough Bitcoin to buy some Raspberry Pis, which are just mini computers? They're about $30 each. So we got equivalent of about $60 in BTC to buy 2 Raspberry Pis. And that set the Department of Ed off. And they said, we don't understand what this is. You can't spend that money. And I'm like, what? We can't spend we can't spend Bitcoin like to buy computers for school children because you don't understand what Bitcoin is? Like, this is crazy. So that kind of went on for 2 years, back and forth. To the principal's credit, he was like, yeah, well, we're not giving up. Let's see what we can do. Until they eventually said, yes, you can spend that money. And obviously, because it's deflationary, we can buy a lot more than 2 Raspberry Pis after the 2.5 years went by, sort of thing. So it was a really interesting story. And then it kind of went into the volunteer that we had out to the school. So basically, through my volunteer work at the Bitcoin Center in Melbourne, we had a philanthropist come out. So there's a guy who'd been to 250 schools across America, just donating little bits here and there. And it was literally like the same week or the week after the department said, yes, you can spend that however much BTC we had for the Raspberry Pis, that he came to visit the school. And we've had visitors basically every day for the last 10 years. People from different schools. We even had the George Lucas Foundation come out to the school and make a film about a school. I think we're the only school outside of America to have a film made by George Lucas about them. So they came and shot for a whole year. But so kids are used to it, staff are used to having visitors like all the time. But this guy, Andrew, came and he stayed all day and then stayed after school for Coda Dojo. And I was like, geez, this guy really likes the school. And basically, because of the work at the Bitcoin Center, people were like, yeah, go check out Kieran's school. You really like it. So yeah, he did. And then the end of the day, he's like, oh, so you're allowed to spend that money, the department, or that you got the department giving you the green light. I want to give you 21 Bitcoins to build that learning space you were talking about, shipping containers.
Wow.
Yeah.
What year is this that this guy, what's his name? Andrew Kwan, I think.
Andrew Kwan, yeah, that's the one.
So what year is this that he's donating 21 Bitcoin to the school?
2016.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just trying to do the math. What was that worth roughly in USD at the time?
Not as much. I think it was like, God, I can't even remember, but not what it is today. That's for sure.
No, that's for sure. So, and the reason I'm just kind of thinking aloud, but I gather the reason that he decided to donate 21 BTC to you guys is that just a nod to the 21 million?
For sure. Yeah, 100%.
Nice.
But yeah, so it was interesting. So the department didn't like that, obviously. So like, oh, we thought you only had like $200 or something, not 21 Bitcoin. So we weren't allowed to actually accept the donation or spend it, even though we got the go ahead from school council and everything.
What, you couldn't? You couldn't take the donation?
No. So which ended up being quite cool, actually. So like, what happened was. He ended up setting up a fund.
Right.
So we worked on a blockchain education program and blockchain education fund. Ironically, out of the BNC offices. So, the BNC offices used to be in the Bitcoin and Blockchain Center in Melbourne, and I used to just have to leave like when they were doing BNC work, and then come back in and work with Andrew on this program we were putting together. So it's pretty funny.
That's right. So listeners, so Kieran's talking about Brave New Coin offices in Melbourne, where I have never been, because Brave New Coin was founded here in New Zealand, and our office is here in New Zealand, but we do have little satellite branches various places around the world, including Melbourne. So who was Pantelis and Rory and all those guys?
Yeah, really nice people, really cool. Pantelis in particular, like caught up with him not too long ago, so he's still doing some cool stuff from the sounds of it.
Shout out Pantelis, shout out Rory.
Yeah, shout out Rory as well.
BNC Melbourne crew, yeah.
Yeah, super cool guys. But yeah, so like working on this fund in there, so we kind of dawned on the two of us, well, the department aren't going to let us do that. Why don't we flip it? And instead of having like the school or me or the teachers have a say in how the funds are allocated, why don't we set up like a voting mechanism? Because at the time there was like a voting mechanism on Ethereum that just launched. We're like, well, let's use that and let the kids vote on how they want the funds allocated for the space. So literally the whole fund was split up into these 4 shipping containers, and the kids all had their say in like what we got. So to put it in perspective, we have like the engineering. So it's meant to be a STEAM center, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
Yeah.
Um, the engineering block turned into like a gaming block with Mario Game Maker in there for some reason. It's all these wacky ideas, but it turned into this like really organic, like student-centric space, like completely student-centric, and all this cool equipment that we ended up setting up, and the kids helped set up, and it was really, really amazing. And I think if the department had said yay on that, like you can just add it to the balance or whatever, we wouldn't have been able to do such a cool job and have the students sort of have their say in how the space was built.
Awesome. So I suppose the wider context here, I think, Kieran, is, you know, you're obviously deep into the education space, and I think, you know, there's a growing realization or narrative around the world that it's very difficult for school curriculums to keep pace with the accelerating technological pace of society, right? And that's not just true of school curriculums. It's true of institutions and all kinds of government departments and organizations. It's just kind of the way the world works with the rapid pace of technological change. It's just difficult for humans and human institutions to keep up with that. So if that's the case, you know, I'm sure you know a lot more about this than I do. So I'm really interested in the wider context as to, you know, what are the problems with modern education, and, you know, how do people like yourself propose to try and improve that? And is it a losing battle? And, you know, what are the kind of the core skills that we should be teaching our kids today to deal with a world that will just keep on changing faster than we can even predict, really?
I was a bit to unpack there, but I think like to your last point there, basically what we need to move to, I think, is, and this is something that the schools historically has really had. Unfortunately, like the school now has kind of been taken over by the department and turned into a bit of a traditional school, unfortunately, and the principal is retired. Shout out to Ray. He's 81 this year. So yeah, he's had a good run at the school, done some amazing stuff. But I think the philosophy of the school is definitely going to sort of live on. In fact, we're writing a book about it that we're going to publish on the Lightning Network specifically. So that's pretty exciting. But at the core of that, basically having students take ownership over their learning and self-direct their learning in problem and project-based learning programs. So we did these things called Enigma Missions. So that's where students pick a topic and they work on it on that topic for up to 2 to 3 years, sort of starting in year 4, going up to year 6. And that's everything from, we had students feeding homeless people to, you know, the problems with GMO foods, to the problems with Einstein's equations, and learning that stuff inside out, and then being able to really unpack that, and then at the end doing a TED style presentation on what they've learned, with people sort of firing questions at them. So I think that's a step in the right direction because the information is just moving too quickly to do sort of that, you know, you learn everything and then you go and apply it. Like, well, everything you just learned is obsolete unless you have a passion about that subject and you're constantly learning about it. So I think that's the answer for that part of it. But I think on the broader scale of things, what's missing across every educational institution, and this is something I'm working on at the moment with a team, actually building on the BTC blockchain with Stacks. So Stacks is like a layer 2 solution for creating DAOs on top of BTC, which is really cool. So we're still in the works with that, but basically building a financial literacy program to plug into any educational institution, because I think at the core, that's the problem with most educational institutions, whether it's primary school, high school, elementary school, university. Nobody really gets any financial literacy. I mean, I didn't, everyone I know didn't. And it's really bizarre. Like you kind of go through primary school, try and do well there to get into a good high school, try and do well there to get into a good university, try and do well as well you can there to get a good job. To what end? To make money. What's money? No one ever taught me. That should have been like the first thing that we did.
Yeah,
So
I couldn't agree more, Kieran. It's really strange. I can remember, and look, my school days are some way in the distant past, but I can remember spending like an afternoon in like what we used to call fifth form. So this is, I don't know, about 15 years old. Maybe one afternoon with I guess it would have been an economics class, teaching us how to balance a checkbook, but didn't get too much deeper than that,
And count some coins for some reason, and then like analyze an analog clock for some reason as well. It's like, what's going on? So I think at the core, that's the problem, and I think what we need to get to is a consensus over what financial literacy means, because it means so much to so many different people. I had this idea. It was a number of years ago. We ran an esports program at school. So esports is basically like competitive gaming, where most people sort of know about it. But the different thing that we did was an exam, and a consensus-driven exam, akin to what we did for the learning space, letting the kids vote on how the funds were allocated to buy hardware. We kind of took that and let the kids build out a curriculum based on gaming specifically, because the kids know it sort of inside out. And the idea was for the facilitators of the esports academy or esports programs to sit exams that the kids write by consensus. So like the best sort of questions going to the top around gaming specifically. And to put it in perspective, I failed like immediately. I didn't know anything. So I was like, right, this is really cool. Like we could actually do something really awesome with this. So then we take that concept, and this is what we're looking at doing with the schoolofbitcoin.com, which is still super early days. And if there's anyone listening to this that's smarter than me that can help us build it out, that'd be really appreciated. But basically, the core concept is doing a consensus-driven financial literacy program that's inclusive. So legacy finance, say there's a group of CPA grads that want to put their 2 cents in, they can. Primary school students, high school students, whoever, really anybody who wants to contribute can. And I think what we get to at a certain point is something close to what financial literacy should look like. And what we want to do is actually pay people to sit through an exam. Once you run through the exam, so in a token, obviously, you can either hodl that token or use the token to upgrade the curriculum for whatever stuff you think should be incorporated. And I think the long-term goal, it's going to have a knock-on effect for DeFi. So like you have all these competing blockchain programs and DeFi networks that are all kind of saying, well, my blockchain's better than yours. Like, I can do this, I can do that. It's like, well, why don't we get to a consensus over that and work together towards what we sort of think is meaningful for the broader community. So yeah, I think that's the twofold. So like what we want to do is that, and then feeding that into problem-based learning, project-based learning, and a community to support that. And then if we can build that out, like a DAO, so a decentralized autonomous organization, or what we're calling a decentralized autonomous education system that we can plug in to anywhere. So it doesn't matter. It could be a classroom, it could be an entire school, it could be an individual, but everybody sort of gets to have a go.
Yeah, so I like that. So you talk about a decentralized autonomous education system. So as you've kind of explained, it's a dynamic open source curriculum and learning network. Financial literacy is at the core, and I suppose the idea is like these, like what people used to call a massive online open learning system, MOOC, whatever those things are called. You know what I mean? People know what I mean. Just a big online course that is open to anyone around the world, right?
100%, 100%.
So, well, what's next then? So, you talked about looking for maybe potential contributors to kind of help you take this to the next level, and also you talked about the Stacks blockchain. The people that used to be called Blockstack, but now they're Stacks, and they're obviously very much focused under the leadership of Manib, very much focused on building on Bitcoin. So first, give us a shout out to your website again, Kieran, so people know where to go, and then just explain a little bit more about how this relates specifically to Bitcoin and to Stacks, and bring it all together.
Yeah, well, it's so it's the schoolofbitcoin.com. So we've got a Twitter feed. We've got a good team at the moment. So a couple of educators and some devs, actually, really cool dev from Chicago who's just jumped on board, and we're super excited to get building. And we're doing everything completely transparent. So every meeting we're having, we're doing as a video podcast and just sharing everything. So every mistake that we made is just going to be public. And I think the end goal is a DAO essentially, that we just sort of release, and then it's ownerless. It's everybody sort of thing. But so building on Stacks specifically, building on Stacks and building on the Lightning Network, I think those two. So Lightning Network, there's some amazing stuff being built on that, specifically around podcasting, especially. Actually, I noticed, are you guys on Podcast 2.0 yet?
Oh, no, but I think I have seen that. Maybe someone sent that to, it could have been you. I don't know. Someone sent that to me. So just explain how that works. It's Podcasts, Bitcoin, Lightning. I've seen it, but tell me more.
It's so cool. And then we can get into why I want to build some of the curriculum on that as well. But basically with podcasting on the Lightning Network, you get paid in real time as people listen to this. So basically you register with Podcast 2.0. I forget the website, but if you Google Podcast 2.0, it pops up. And essentially there's an a bunch of apps, but the best app I've found is called Breeze, BREEZ. And that runs a full node on your phone. So full Lightning node on your phone. And literally you can load it up with BTC, and you put how much you think the podcast you're listening to. So this podcast, you can put a couple of cents per minute, whatever. And then Andy, you'd see that in real time coming to you as people listen to it. And the cool thing with that is, and I haven't figured this out yet because I'm still messing around with my node and doing all sorts of crazy stuff, but you can actually do splits. So between your podcast, and I'll put this up on bitcoinaggregated.com as well, but you can actually do a split payment between the two. So as people are listening to us talk, you both get paid in sats, and you can watch it. You can watch people paying you on your node. It's so cool. It's such a cool concept.
That is a cool concept, and like anything though with these concepts, the tricky part is always getting crossing the chasm, if you like. Getting that initial adoption and enough of a user base for it to keep going. How many? Do you know any of the metrics behind it?
There's a lot of podcasts up on there now.
There.
I don't know the amount, but there's
Are they all Bitcoin podcasts?
No, actually, no. There's heaps of cool stuff on there that you wouldn't expect.
Amazing.
In fact, I did a podcast. So I run the IPFS podcast as well. So we did a swap cast with some guys in Sydney actually, and they're running a non-Bitcoin podcast, just interviewing interesting people. Yep. And basically they found out about Bitcoin specifically because of the Lightning Network and this system. And I think that's the same for a lot of people. So yeah, I think like with the way this works, it doesn't cost you anything to set it up. So like your podcast at the moment, all you need is your RSS feed. You plug it in and then have your node set up. So have you got a full node running at your place, or have you got any sort of Lightning node?
I think we've got a full Bitcoin node at BNC. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So basically, you set that up to accept Lightning payments, and yeah, away you go. People can just start tipping you and paying as they listen, sort of thing. So definitely worth doing. And if you want, I can help you out set it up.
All right, I'm gonna look into this, and yeah, we'll keep the conversation going on that offline, Kieran. But yeah, that's fascinating. So, and any other podcasters out there, get into it. So yeah, just yeah, Google podcast 2.0 Bitcoin, and you'll find all the details.
And away you go. But yeah, so like specifically, we're building stuff on the Lightning Network, I think, is really cool because you can do like really interesting things with, you know, peer-to-peer payments and that sort of thing. But also specifically because it's the BTC blockchain, whatever you build sort of has longevity as well. So doing that for a curriculum makes a lot of sense. We're still thinking about the ins and outs of that because we've actually started writing some stuff and putting it on the Lightning Network. But the only thing I can't wrap my head around is the inclusion part, because it kind of means you need to have BTC and a Lightning wallet set up in order to be able to participate with that. So I'm kind of two minds as to whether we do that or do it for an aspect of it or whatever. But we'll get to an end goal with that, I suppose. But Stacks specifically, I think, is very inclusive, and it allows anyone to sort of interact with it. And as I said before, it means we can actually spin up a token on the BTC blockchain and pay students or learners. Specifically changing the term student to learner, because a learner can be anybody, sort of thing. But a learner to accept payment or tokenization for completing the exams and the curriculum, and then contributing to that as well. But yeah, so like I've been looking at doing this sort of thing for a while, looking at different blockchains, and obviously Ethereum. Ethereum's has had its issues at the last year or so, but spinning up an ERC20 token, we could do that tomorrow afternoon and whatever, pay people in that token. But I think really going that extra mile and building on the BTC blockchain specifically. And I think it might have even been your podcast, or either your podcast or one of the Bitcoin podcasts anyway. And they were interviewing the Stacks guys. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that project. That was really cool. What happened to that? And then, looked into it. I'm like, oh, cool. All right. They're offering grants and all sorts of stuff. Let's do that. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure it was you, Andy. So thanks for that.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I've done a few different podcasts with the Stacks team. Did one with Manib. The funny thing about the one I did with Manib was that one we actually recorded in, I guess, March 2020, and it was on the day of the global markets crash, just as COVID was really sinking in around the world, and I was just not in a great headspace because I was just watching the charts absolutely get destroyed, and then it was like, right, you're on a call with Manib. Hard to sound enthusiastic about things because the pieces of the market was just in ruins all around us. But he, to his credit, he's probably was doing better than I was at the time. He was cool, calm, and collected. Didn't seem too worried. But man, I had to hold myself together to get through that one.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So, actually, that brings me to it. Like, what was your BTC origin story?
Ooh, that's a good question, Kieran. So I suppose for me, I'd been, if we go back to probably 2018, I got into crypto probably early 2017, and then, that was obviously a good. It was a good year for anyone that even just dabbled their feet, and that's really all I was doing in 2017. But by the start of 2018, obviously I was hooked on crypto and was like, well, wasn't too interested in anything else. So I thought I've got to try and pivot into crypto and see if I can find somewhere to get involved. So I ended up working with a crypto startup here in New Zealand in 2018. Like a lot of crypto startups, 2018 wasn't such a good year, and so that ended up struggling a bit. And so then I think I pivoted across to Brave New Coin, probably I think early to mid 2019, because here in Auckland and New Zealand there's probably 3 or 4 big crypto hubs.
Yeah.
Of which Brave New Coin / Tekami is one. And well, I don't know how interesting this is for listeners to hear too much of my backstory, but funnily enough, I started at Brave New Coin as a writer / editor for the Brave New Coin website, and I was fine doing that, but one day I think I said, let's do I think it'd be good to do a series of kind of a bit more interesting, in-depth interviews of, the thought leaders, the project leaders, people all around the global crypto ecosystem. And the guys at BNC said, oh yeah, that sounds good, really good idea, Andy, but why don't you try and do that as a podcast? And I thought, I'm not sure about that. That sounds a bit tricky. That sounds scary. So I had to think about it for a day or so. But then I was like, okay, because BNC had actually tried doing a podcast before, but didn't really get going. But so yeah, long story short, that was the origin story for the Crypto Conversation. Started slowly. We just did. One episode a week for the first year or so, and then slowly kicked it up a bit, now doing probably 2 to 3 episodes every week, and here we are. But look, Kieran, if you're a podcaster yourself, it takes time and dedication to build a podcast.
Oh yeah, no, hats off. You've done a great job for sure. That's because I listened to a bunch of your podcasts going back forever, and I've never heard your origin story, so I was just curious about that.
Well, that's very much the short version, but yeah.
That's cool. What was the name of the podcast they were doing before yours?
Oh no, I don't think they even got further. It was before my time, but I think they just tried to. They never even got round to. They didn't actually publish it because they tried to, film some. And I think this is with Pantelis. Sounds like I'm throwing him under the bus, but they just, filmed some and some of the other guys, and decided, not to go ahead.
Oh, that's funny. Gosh, I'll have to ask Pantelis about that. That's funny.
But now here we are. Crypto Conversation is we're over 200 episodes now.
That's amazing. Well done indeed. It's great. It takes a lot. To do. So it's amazing.
It does. Well, that feels like a nice place, Kieran, I reckon, to go to a very quick break. And then, look, if you're a regular listener, Kieran, you'll know what happens after the break. We finish off.
Hot take.
We have some fun. We go to the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round indeed. All right. Nothing else to say except we'll be back right after the break.
For crypto indices and benchmarking, Brave New Coin's powerful indexing engine can calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. Brave New Coin's custom indices team delivers experienced consultancy, premium data, and trusted calculation. Contact BNC today to find out more.
All right, we're back, and I'm with Kieran Nolan. Kieran, of course, is an educational technologist, and he is the man behind the School of Bitcoin.com. So as we've discussed, if you're at all interested in helping Kieran with the School of Bitcoin. Just go to theschoolofbitcoin.com and you can find out all about that fascinating project. But Kieran, as you very well know, I like to finish each Crypto Conversation podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
I sure am.
Awesome, Kieran. You know how it goes. Hot take style, quick, snappy answers. Here you go. Mr. Kieran Nolan, where do you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-coin opportunist spectrum?
So basically what I tell everybody, because I get asked all the time, what coin should I buy? Is Dogecoin good? Well, I think the best advice I can give is DCA to BTC to a hardware wallet. So it's dollar cost average to a hardware wallet. And I usually say $5 a week. And that way you're not freaking out about the price. And I tell everybody, and actually this would have been good for you, Andy, with that podcast back in March 2020, focus on hash rate, don't focus on price, because you'll go insane focusing on the price. And in terms of being agnostic, I think blockchain agnostic to technology, I think there's heaps of cool projects getting built. And I think, yeah, they can all be incorporated into each other at some point. So I'm all for people building out whatever they want. I think it's fantastic. But I think in terms of investment, yeah, definitely just DCA, and then you won't be freaking out.
Yeah, that's very good advice, Kieran, and that's when people ask me, that's pretty much what I say. It's funny though, it's like it's, just saying to someone, oh, you've just got a dollar cost average into Bitcoin. It's very much a super conservative take now in crypto, right? Now that we're sort of in this interesting period where you've definitely got Bitcoin on the one side as the safe, steady, reliable store of value, and then all these shiny new toys with Web3, NFTs, all these competing layer 1 smart contract platforms. Man, it is a brave new world.
It certainly is.
Let's go to the next question though, Kieran. What is your firmest conviction, crypto opinion?
I think that we will get to a Bitcoin standard probably quicker than anybody thinks. I think, most people think. So I think we're at that point, particularly with like places like El Salvador that have really just jumped off. Like I've been following that story since the get-go. It's like a couple of guys just paying students to stay in school and, clean up the rivers and that sort of thing, and getting paid in BTC on the Lightning Network, to a whole country adopting it within a year. So I can see that happening pretty rapidly across the world. So I'm pretty optimistic.
Yeah, that's fascinating the way you frame that, Kieran, because that's quite similar to your own story, right? Except, it's obviously you're in Australia, so Australia is a much more established Western democracy, blah, blah, blah. It's bigger, it's older, less volatile, but moves like a slow moving tanker, as opposed to somewhere like El Salvador, where there's not so much, well, maybe is he a dictator? I don't know, maybe that's unfair. He seems like a very nice guy, but he kind of, you know what I mean? He makes the rules, so it's much easier for someone like that to pivot a much smaller nation. But yeah, I mean, I think directionally you're right, and because it did happen so quickly. But yeah, point I was making is, it's just a couple of dudes like yourself kind of fooling around with the Lightning Network and trying to teach people the ways of the Bitcoin, and then boom, a year later a nation state adopts Bitcoin. Incredible when you put it like that.
Well, it's funny actually that you say that. It is similar to my story, but hopefully I think El Salvador's had a better end. So we actually had so the learning space was a bit sad actually. The learning space that we built from the shipping containers, we had some like crims break in, and they ripped the doors off the hinges and stole everything. And basically the which is really awful. Stole most of the stuff anyway. Came back a second night, stole the rest of it. And there was no, because it's in shipping containers, the department didn't have to pay insurance. And the solution that the government came up with, or the Department of Ed came up with, was to write a policy so that no Victorian school can ever use shipping containers for classrooms ever again. So it's pretty disheartening there. So it's a bit of a different story.
Bureaucracy at work.
Yeah.
Well, Bill Gates, as you'll be only too aware, Kieran, famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So whatever you like here, but I guess, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin standard, what does it look like in 10 years' time?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Saylor talks about is probably going to be the key points there. So I think it's going to be a combination of countries like El Salvador, they'll probably become the first world, and then countries kind of playing catch up to that. So like places like the US and Australia, Canada, etc., New Zealand, will probably have what Saylor sort of talks about. So like some sort of connection between the BTC network and their local currencies until they eventually flip over. So I think it's going to be a lot longer in terms of adoption for countries like ours, as opposed to countries like El Salvador and Argentina. From the looks of it, I see that Jack's sort of moving in there as well. So,
well, that's right, and it's just because and obviously Saylor talks about this as well. It's the game theory incentives, right? So it's just as one or two of those early dominoes start to fall, then other smaller countries at first are incentivized. Particularly if the El Salvador experiment, if they can kind of pull it off and not mess it up too badly, then the game theory becomes so much stronger for the other nation states. And if you get 4 or 5 smaller nation states, then boom, the game is on, and the central banks they have to start to get involved, or what are they going to do? Just watch the value of their sovereign gold holdings fall away to nothing, and their fiat currencies get destroyed.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating times.
Well, a flip side, of course, is that William Gibson said the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. Can you think of an example of the future being here right now, Kieran? But most people just aren't really aware of it.
100% the Lightning Network. I think it's bigger and better than, like we talked about with the podcasting 2.0, like it's ready to rock. There's countries built on it now. There's it just works. Like anyone that you introduce to it, like I use a custodial wallet of Satoshi, which is actually like the go-to wallet for a number of months in El Salvador. Some guys in Brisbane actually built it, but it's fantastic. It works. You can onboard people in 2 seconds. Like it's really well, and it's and yeah, just talking about like people not knowing about it now, like Elon Musk just recently had an interview talking about like a new currency for Mars, and completely like overlooked the Lightning Network. He said, "Oh, Bitcoin's no good for payments. We need to use Doge or something." Or it's just like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. So it's here. Like that's the future that's here, and even Elon can't see it.
Yeah, I find Elon's fascination with Doge, I think it's interesting, but it's weird, eh? It's weird that, he would go out and buy all this Bitcoin on behalf of Tesla. And then since then he's just kind of been attacking Bitcoin almost.
It's bizarre, isn't it? It's hard to wrap your head around. I think what really annoyed me, because I use with the Doge thing, because I've been using it for years. Like I dread to think how much Bitcoin I've lost over the years, or given to students and they've lost the keys for it and stuff. But I ended up starting to use Doge specifically because I could just get a bunch for nothing basically, and has all the same mechanisms to learn about the cryptos and blockchain and what's the transaction hash and all that without the fear of actually losing a lot of money. Yes. And then you went and pumped the price. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. Look, if there's, I think the best summary of the fact that Elon bought Bitcoin and then pivoted to Doge, a literal meme coin, famously started as a parody of cryptocurrency. You know, if that doesn't prove that, and this is the richest man in the world doing that, if that doesn't prove that we are a simulation, I don't know what does.
Very true, very true.
All right, time to zoom out, time to get weird, or even weirder than we've been getting, Kieran. What do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
Nah, I think, well, neither probably, but I'm pretty optimistic. I think just listening to a podcast recently, they were talking about the difference between the two, and I think utopia, I forget what they actually called it, but it's not something you'd ever want. Like when you actually break it down into what it means, like the definition behind it, it's like a negative, and so is dystopia, obviously. But I think somewhere in the middle. But I think I'm quite optimistic for our immediate future, anyway. And I think like the next couple of years are going to be a bit weird, probably until somewhere like 2025, 2026, where we start adopting like a BTC standard, and then I think things are going to be absolutely awesome across the world. So I think there's going to be so many cool things that we're going to be able to do that we haven't even thought of. Kind of akin to the internet. So like before the internet, like it'd be inconceivable for us to have a conversation like this from our bedrooms. You know what I mean? That now it's just ubiquitous everywhere. You're going to have things like that on the BTC network that you couldn't even fathom now. So yeah, I'm excited for the future.
Bring it on, Kieran. I'm excited too. Let's start to close this out. Finally, Kieran, what is your favourite science fiction book, film, show, or universe?
I'm going to give you all three.
Oh, I love it. It's the first time anyone's said that to me, and I'm thrilled. I'm excited. What do you got, Kieran? Let's go.
Okay, so the favourite show, and you'll dig this, is an episode of The X-Files written by William Gibson called Kill Switch. And if you haven't seen it, watch it. He actually did two. He did that and First Person Shooter. They're both pretty good, but Kill Switch is the really cool one. And
Amazing. Give us this. What's the high level synopsis for Kill Switch?
It's kind of akin to, and the film I was going to talk about was Ghost in the Shell. It's kind of akin to that. So like uploading consciousness to the internet. So this is like, before the internet was the internet sort of thing.
Yeah, this is 90s era X-Files.
Yeah. So 94, 95, something like that. But yeah, it goes into all that, and the tech, it holds up, like in terms of the tech they have. Like he's got laptops that connect to the internet wirelessly. Like it's just really amazing. So yeah, download that if you haven't seen it. Definitely worth a watch.
Awesome. And so film is, what's your film?
Ghost in the Shell. So Ghost in the Shell. Awesome. Yeah, amazing anime. Similar sort of concepts, but when I first saw it, it just blew my mind, and every time I watch it, it's just amazing. And I'm not talking about the remake, the Hollywood remake that took everything literally and kind of ruined everything. Looked amazing, but yeah, definitely watch the original anime from '95. And favorite book is a book called Valis by Philip K. Dick, which is just
nice.
It's really big. It's a tough read, but it is bizarre. It's probably one of the weirdest books I've ever read. But the reason I really like it is basically Philip K. Dick was going crazy, and he documented going crazy like in this book. And it's really strange because he had like these epiphanies and actually saved his son's life. I think he had cancer or something, but he knew where the cancer was from this epiphany that he had, and documented the whole thing in the book. And it's really, really strange, but definitely worth a read if you have the time.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the Wikipedia entry now. So Valis by Philip K. Dick. Valis is an acronym for Vast Active Living Intelligence System, which was the author's Gnostic vision of God. Set in California during the 70s, the book features heavy autobiographical elements and draws inspiration from Dick's own investigations into his unexplained religious horrendous experiences over the previous decade. And is that a polite way of saying Philip was losing his mind?
Pretty much. But there's that combined with an interview that he did in, I think it was in Paris, just like a few years before he died. And he talks about the Matrix basically, before that was a concept, and he was sort of experiencing that. It's so strange, but if you look up Philip K. Dick interview Paris, that goes really well with Velas if you want to do a deep dive.
I can see he says that the book offers a rationalist explanation of his apparent theophany, acknowledging that it might have been a visual and auditory hallucinations from his schizophrenia and drug addiction. It's bizarre, but definitely worth a read. All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us a book, a film, and a TV show, Kieran. Appreciate that. Nothing else to say really except hand the metaphorical microphone back to your good self. Close it out, Kieran. Please tell the people where they should go to learn more about the School of Bitcoin and where they can find you on Twitter or any other platform. School of Bitcoin, theschoolofbitcoin.com. kdnolan.com. It's got all my deets on there, and the other place this podcast will go on is on bitcoinaggregated.com. Awesome. Hey, thanks very much, Kieran. This was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. Thanks very much, and bye for now. Thanks.